You do not have to live in an amazing location in order to take amazing photos.
Welcome to the Free Will Photos podcast with Chris Scott, where I help new photographers overcome photography equipment, editing applications, and creative blocks so you can go further in your photography journey. Tune in every Monday and Friday for the most recent show. If you want to get in contact with me and ask a very specific question, send me an email at freewillphotos@gmail.com. Now let's get into today's episode.
Welcome back to the Free Will Photos Photography Podcast. Today, we're talking about discovering photos in boring places, or if you're just a little uninspired. Now, in the show notes, there's going to be all kinds of stuff, so check that place out. One thing that I will call out to you is the website. Go ahead, move over to the website when you get a chance, sign up. It's completely free. That's where you're going to be getting all the free presets moving forward if you are using On1 Photo Raw. But there's going to be other content. So if you're interested, go over to freewillphotos.com, sign up for free, and we'll keep it moving. Here's one of the myths. I want to debunk a myth before we get too far into this. You do not have to live in an amazing location in order to take amazing photos or make an amazing photo. There's a philosophy on, are you taking a photo or making a photo? It doesn't really matter, all right? A photo can be amazing no matter where you are. You just have to understand what you're looking for. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about in today's episode, because I think when we get uninspired or when we think that we live in a boring location, we instantly tell ourselves that there's nothing interesting around us. And the truth is, that's a lie. There's always something interesting around you. And so, I'm going to help kind of reveal how you can maybe look at your location or the place that you live in a new lens or a new point of view, things of that sort. The first place that I would recommend that you go is a park. All right. Now, typically there is more than one park in any given city. But if you only have one park, that's even better because you get to really work the subject. So you go to the park and you literally just walk around. Don't take your camera. You just walk around. All right. For anyone who, when I said don't take your camera and you're like, oh no, but what if I see a picture? Then that's when you know that you still have stuff available to you to photograph. Right. But if you are truly uninspired and you're bored, then don't take the camera. Don't have the pressure of having to take the photos with you, right? That day will come. Or if you want, take your camera, put it in the car. But when you go and do this drill, just walk around the park and look, all right? Then there's people, right? Depending on where you live, there's going to be people doing things. Find a place where someone's doing stuff. Again, at the park, there's going to be people there. You can do some candid street photography. Or if you are an extrovert, maybe introduce yourself to them and ask them if you can make a photo of them and, share it with them. It's that one can be a little intimidating if you're not used to just talking to complete strangers. But maybe you can do like a candid photo where they're a silhouette, right? There's all kinds of stuff that you can do. But moral of the story, the goal is to find people doing things, right? And sitting technically is a thing that you do, but it's not a very interesting thing, right? So maybe do a long shutter drag to make some motion blur in the shot. I don't know, something like that. The next one is going to be buildings. There are buildings in most cities, right? Or towns or whatever. You can go to your town hall. And again, you're not photographing just yet. You're walking around and you're going to take a look at the building. You're going to see what is interesting about this building and what history is there to have about this building, right? Or for people to know about this building. When you go around and you're like, okay, this building is from the 1800s, if that's the case. I don't know, right? Every building has a story, even the new ones. And then you start looking at the smaller details around the building. You see, by not having the camera, you free yourself to actually go and just explore, right? And it's when you explore and you understand the subject a little bit better, you can then point your camera at the thing that's actually important about the subject. All right, that's the goal here. So the next one is going to be statues. I think most towns have statues. Same concept with the buildings. And then cars and plants. So if you live in an area, like I live in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, there is a car show here quite frequently. I don't know what they are, or when they are, but there's all sorts of car shows that happen here. All right. There are an abundance of people who they deck out their cars, and all you gotta do is go take a photo of them. But just the other day, I took a photo of a truck. I think it's an old. It doesn't. I don't think it's ran in years. It's an old truck, and I'll share that photo probably in this week's 15-minute drill, because I took it on Sunday, and I'm just working through the edits. But I took the photo, and it's a car, right? I'm making something out of it in the post-production, and that's one of the things that we'll get to here in a little bit. All right, and then of course plants. Plants, I'm really including flowers. You could go to a flower shop, buy some flowers, and throw those on a desk, and you can just mess around with light with those. All right, moral of the story, there are things. Now, what do you do with these things? I've already alluded to a lot of those, but look to make photos with interesting shapes and textures. You want to make something that has a cool texture or a cool shape. Now, this could be a restrictive process, or it can be just, I want to add this in to something else. So what am I talking about? Well, most buildings, they're made of some sort of material. If there is a way that you can, you're using natural light in most cases, so you definitely want to have directional light. It's going to cast a shadow across the building, and when it does that, then you'll be able to take a look at it, and you'll see the texture on the building a little bit better. All right, and you're going to probably have to visit the subject multiple times at different times of the day, just so you can figure out when the best light is hitting my subject. Now, if you take a flower and you put it in, on a desk, and then you just have complete control over moving the light around, you can see where that texture and where that shape is coming from. All right. Or I'm sorry, the texture. Now, as far as shape goes, we all know our basic shapes, right? Circles, triangles, squares, rectangles, all those things. The goal is to find simple shapes, and they're not always going to be perfectly symmetrical or anything crazy like that, but find simple shapes in your subject and then frame around it, right? Or incorporate that somewhere in the frame, and it will help with the composition and make that thing look a little bit more interesting. So instead of photographing something straight on, maybe there's a handrail going to the building option. Maybe there's a handrail from the stairs, and there's these parallel lines between each one of the rods on the handrail. You can crouch down, get between the handrail, include those rectangular uprights, if you will. I don't know what they're, parallel uprights that, if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. You can include those into your image in the frame, and then, but focus on the building. And then those are going to be they're going to be a foreground out of focus element. And yes, there is a way that you can add this, composite it in post. You can add that as a layer, cut out everything around it, and then throw a blur over that particular piece, and then you can absolutely do that. if that's the way that you want to go, if there's no handrail, right? So that is another way of, and I'm jumping ahead in my notes, but you can walk around and take individual images and then composite them to make the image that you actually want. So something to think about, food for thought. Moral of the story, find shapes and incorporate them into your image. Leading lines, repetitive things, symmetrical items, these are all compositionally pleasing. I'm not some technical photographer or anything of that sort. I'm not trying to give you the technicalities behind it. Just trying to give you something to think about. So when you go and take a photo, you can say, okay, do I want to include shapes? Do I want to include texture in my image? What's interesting about my subject, and how do I best highlight that with the light that I have available to me? All right. Try your best not to overthink it. Go with whatever your first instinct is. Now, when you get back to the computer and you're like, oh man, I really blew that. That's okay. Those are actually better photos because now you've learned something about your photography style and your technique. So don't overthink taking a photo. Just go and take the photo and come back, look at it and say, okay, I messed that up. And then also don't beat yourself up. Think about what you did right as well, because you did do something right. Whatever it is up to you to determine what that right is, right? This is your art. It is your subjectivity to what the right thing is. The next thing that I'm going to say is look for subjects with interesting light. It's important that we look at subjects and we see what type of light they're in. All right. Like right now, I have a light right in front of me. I am the subject of the camera. This is not the most flattering light, right? It's good because it fills my face. It fills the shadows because I have a light right above me. If you have no idea how light works and how it wraps around a subject or anything like that, then one of the best things that you can do is grab your cell phone and use the light on your phone, because most phones have lights. And if you don't have a light on your phone, that's fine. Get a flashlight. I guarantee you have some sort of light available to you. And then you can take anything. It doesn't matter what it is. I do think that you want something like this is just a remote to one of the lights that I have. You can take a remote, you can take a knife, you can take a soda can. It doesn't matter. Turn off all of the lights in an area and then use just the light on your phone and move that around your subject. All right, whatever your subject is, and see what happens when the light comes from different directions and different angles. And then that helps you start to see like, okay, there's some interesting light. Now, or maybe you won't see interesting light and then you'll say, okay, this doesn't, I don't understand it. And then you go out into the street and you start looking at stuff. I know that a lot of people say that early in the morning as the sun is rising and later in the evening as the sun is setting is like one of the most beautiful times of day. And I'm not going to disagree with that statement. I think that those are beautiful times of the day. But that leaves people wondering, well, can I not photograph between 10:30 and 4 o'clock, or, depending on when the sun starts to set, 10:30 and 3 o'clock? Can I not photograph during then? And the answer is absolutely you can. There is interesting light, I think, all the time, right? You just have to go and find it. So maybe the light is because it's noon and the sun is overhead, but there's all these trees and it's casting a shadow on the ground. Well, Is your subject something that you can put on the ground and work in those shadows? I don't know. That's for you to determine, for you to experiment with, right? And the goal here is just to keep you inspired and keep you creating. You may not make a great photo, but as long as you are inspired to press the shutter button, the photo will come at some point. Okay? Key takeaways: yes, you can get some great photos, sunrise and sunset, but that's also if you're outdoors. If you're indoors, you can make the light, right? You can shape the light however you want. You can also use window light, put a subject in front of it, and just go ahead, go to town and photograph. And, I probably should have just started with this. Just take photos, all right? Just take photos. It's okay if they're bad. We already talked about that. The worse the photo, the more you have to learn from it, all right? And you will grow. But it's like this. If you have all of the mental knowledge of how to take a good photo, but you've never pulled the camera out of the bag and took a photo, you do not know how to take a photo. You have a theory of how a photo is taken, but if you've never done it, you don't have the experience, so you can't say that you know how to take a photo. You just understand the concepts that go into taking a photo or making a photo, whatever it is. No matter what, and this is why I said don't overthink it. Just snap the shutter button and go. Whatever happens, happens. And it's okay. I'll give a disclaimer. If you are doing this for payment, right, then you can't just push the shutter button and hope for the best, all right? You got to know what you're doing. But if you are working for hire, you have probably gotten to a consistent production level that it's okay, all right? So keep that in mind. You can't just guess when it comes to work for hire. But if this is just for like your personal catalog and you're just messing around, go for it. It doesn't matter. I've taken pictures of stuff that was completely silly, and there was literally nothing good in the photo. I just pushed the shutter button, all right? Because the repetition of pushing the shutter button helps you learn, at the minimum, something about your camera, all right? Maybe the settings and how it produces in that sort of light. Even if the photo doesn't look great, at least you learn something about how your camera produces the image in that sort of circumstance, all right? So if you ever end up with a beautiful image that you could take in that circumstance, then you'll be able to set your camera appropriately and capture the image. That could be the win, right? Keep it simple. If you have a telephoto lens, this is the time to pull that out. The reason why you want to grab a telephoto lens is it allows you to really zoom in and crop out whatever is going on around you, all right? Or around your subject. You might be looking at, if you're looking at a building, maybe there's a particular brick that just stands out, right? All the bricks are red, and then there's this one brick that's like a dark orange, and it just stands out. That became your subject. If you were to take a wide angle photo, it's not clear which brick would be the subject. But if you get a telephoto lens, or if you can walk in closer to the building and kind of isolate that in your frame, then it becomes a little bit more clear. But if you have a telephoto lens, it's a little bit easier to do that. And, would you ever focus on a brick? I don't know. Maybe you will. Maybe you won't. The point that I want to make here is a telephoto lens helps you keep your composition a little bit more simple. You can walk closer if you have a 50 mil or 35 mil or 24 or something that's a little bit wider. You can walk closer, but you do have that minimal focusing distance. And the wider your angle, the more distortion you can have, the closer you get to a subject. So, and maybe that's what you want. Maybe you want it to be distorted. You can correct some of that in post-production using camera profiles or lens profiles, but the point that I want to make here is keep your composition simple. The more simple the composition, the more the viewer will appreciate the image. Now, that's a very subjective statement, so take that with a grain of salt. Sometimes you need a more complex composition to really convey what's going on in the circumstance. But look at the photos that inspire you the most and ask yourself, what did the photographer cut out of this image? What did the photographer leave out, right? Because we are in the business of excluding things around us to highlight the subject that we see in front of us. That is the art of photography, right? Because we see a bunch of stuff, but the thing we want the viewer to see, it's got to be simple and it's got to be clear. You should never take a photo and someone look at it and say, what's that a photo of? Unless it's like some abstract art type stuff, then that's different. But if you are trying to capture the essence of something or of a subject, someone or no one should come to you and be like, hey, what did you just take a photo of? All right. So just keep that in mind. You can also use colors. You can use colors to help make the photo pop a little bit more. Find contrasting colors. Those tend to work really well. And if you don't know color theory, don't worry about it. I don't know color theory all that well. There's a ton of videos on YouTube you can check out. But look, the point is, if you see some colors and you think that they look cool together, take the photo, right? This goes back to my philosophy of just press the button. And it's okay. Doesn't matter if you're a beginner or a professional. Look, just press the button. There's a lot of people who like to make it out like, oh, all I take is great photos. And that's a lie. All right. I don't care how good of a photographer you are. You do not take all great photos. However, because of social media and people not really wanting to be real, they will make it out as if they've only taken great photos and that's all you see. But if you were to look at their catalog, there would be a photo where maybe their finger was in the way or some cables were hanging down. The sunlight didn't actually match with some of the, or, didn't highlight the subject. The angle was odd. There's all kinds of stuff, right? Now, a bad photo is a subjective thing. And a good photo is also a subjective thing. I think there's some objectivity to it, but photography is very subjective. So don't feel bad if you take a photo and you're like, oh man, I hate it. Just press the shutter button and go with it. If you don't walk away with anything else from today's episode, press the shutter button and go. All right. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Here's what I have for you. I got a little bit of an assignment. All right. What I want you to do is plan out, like get a list, right? I have my little notepad right here. It's kind of overexposed, but write down 5 places that this week you want to go and explore. Doesn't matter where they are, somewhere local. So keep it within, 10, 20 miles of your house. Now, if you live in a little bit more of a secluded area or rural area, you do whatever is within reason for you to naturally commute. Doesn't matter. And if you're like, I'm not going anywhere, then choose 5 items in your home that you want to photograph. And they could be at random or they can be intentional. It doesn't matter. All right. The goal is to get something and have a plan, right? And then very simply, you're going to go and observe, and then you're going to go and photograph. All right. If the locations are closer to each other, it's a little bit better. And if 5 is too much, then do 1. It doesn't matter, right? The goal here is really just to get you in the mood and conditioning you to take photos when they need to be taken. That's all. That's all I'm trying to help you with. All right. I'm not trying to overcomplicate this. Keeping it as simple as I possibly can. So that's it. Choose some places, go take photos, and see how it comes out. Learn from it, write notes, make notes, whatever, and say, okay, you know what? Next time I go here, I'm going to go at 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't know that if you get up that early, or I'm going to go at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm going to shoot this in monochrome or black and white. And believe it or not, this is just my personal preference. I enjoy photographing at noon in black and white. Because the sun, there's like this contrasting light, you can get some really sharp shadows, and that helps with making shapes. Maybe that's something you experiment with, but you learn about the subject the more you visit the subject. So if you choose, even if you choose one thing and you're like, I'm going to go there 5 times this week, all at different times, and I'm going to photograph it or just walk by and observe it. Doesn't matter. You don't always have to take a photo, right? If you're learning about the subject. But get into the habit of being okay with taking a photo and then seeing what comes out on the back end. It may be good. It may be bad. Who knows? I surely don't. But it's still something worthwhile to explore. Now, if you are, just joining us and you don't know who I am, my name's Chris. I'm the content creator at Free Will Photos, and I do have this podcast that I'm trying to revive. So hopefully it works out. If you would like to, stay connected, please go to the freewillphotos.com website, sign up, become a member. It's completely for free. I'm going to be adding a form to the back end of the site, and that's only going to be accessible for members. And inside of that form, we're going to have discussions, and we're also going to have a place for you to post your pictures, and we can talk about these assignments that hopefully are inspiring to you. Now, if you are on YouTube, please leave a comment in the comment section. Let me know what you think about this. Let me know how your assignment went or how it goes. Let me know if this is something that you are interested in. Whatever, just talk to me. All right. I do get to all of the comments. Sometimes it's a little bit slower than others, but it's okay. Now, if you are on any of the podcasting platforms and you're just purely listening to this, what I will ask you to do is check the description box or the show notes, and there's a series of links, all right? One of them is going to link you to the website, and then there's a link to the YouTube channel, as well as a link to download a photography editing software. So if you do not have a photo editing software for your raw images and you're looking to purchase one or at least experiment with one, use the link. It is an affiliate link, like I said, and if I didn't, I meant to, for On1 Photo Raw. It is by far my favorite photo editing software to this date. Now, if you already have one, then don't worry about it. Just move on and it'll be okay. But if you are looking for a new software, if you're looking for a new photo editor, just check that out. I guarantee you will find something beneficial about it. And the cool thing is you can also go to the YouTube channel, and I have a lot of content centered around On1 Photo Raw, how to use it, and how to edit your photos and keep things going. So I am going to cut that the episode there, and we'll just meet in the next one. So until next time, I want you guys to stay inspired and keep creating. Peace.